Hey everyone, happy Friday. I am excited to be here with your update. We have a lot of great changes that we're implementing this week. So thanks for doing this training and keeping up on those. It's truly the way to give the wow to our clients. So I'm going to jump right in and start reviewing these. You got to make sure though that you still read all of the training and the attachments, and there will be a second video link down below for a little tutorial on one of the announcements that we have. So here we go. One of our big changes is we have decided to change our primary recommendation for heartworm prevention in dogs from Sentinel to ProHeart. That's the 6-month injectable heartworm prevention for dogs that we deworm with as well. So to change our primary recommendation, we have to change a couple of protocols, and there are some extra steps that we have to take to make sure that dogs are eligible for heartworm warranty and that we are being really safe with making the change. So here's how it goes. Here are the key takeaways. Again, you got to read that whole protocol that we've attached. But the key takeaways to make this work are that we will test for heartworms initially when they change product. We have a complimentary test for this. It's called a witness test. So there's a code in Avamark, and that code is OHWTW. That's for the complimentary witness occult heartworm test. I know that's a lot to say, and it's probably a lot to remember. So you can search for any of those terms. You could search for complimentary heartworm, you could search for witness occult, any of those terms, and you'll be able to find that code, and it's listed in the SOP that we're attaching. So we would test on that initially at the product change, and if it's negative that day, go ahead and administer the first ProHeart, and then it would fall in line for them to be retested in line with their next dose of ProHeart, which hopefully will line up with their annual. There are some situations where the ProHeart administration wouldn't line up, so there are a couple of recommendations for that. One is if somebody runs out of product and they want to change and you notice that it's not going to line up with their annual. In other words, for you to give it today, 6 months will either kind of fall before their annual was due or maybe just after. So if it's going to be just after, I would go ahead and make the product change right now and talk to the client about it. If it's going to be just before, you might consider continuing them on some single doses of their current oral heartworm prevention to get them lined up, or you may consider just talking to the client about how it's not going to line up and let them make that decision. So there's some choices that you can do there. One reason that it wouldn't line up would be for puppies specifically. If you really think about it, we, in order to get the rabies vaccine to be 1 year from the point where it would be given to a puppy, which is approximately at that 3 to 4 month stage, puts them due for their heartworm prevention to be renewed about 4 months before their annual. So we want to be strategic about how that lines up, and then we also have to take in mind about administering ProHeart to growing puppies, that we have a little situation where sometimes we can't exactly predict their weight. So the most ideal thing to do would be to keep a puppy on an oral heartworm prevention until they're 8 months old, then administer ProHeart, and it will continue from there to line up perfectly with their annuals throughout the rest of their lifetime. So to do that, typically we'll see puppies about once a month while they're growing and they're going through their vaccination series. Sometimes we don't get that luxury if maybe they've adopted an older pet or they're new to our practice or whatever. So what we have to offer are single doses of oral heartworm prevention going forward. This is exactly what we do now. However, sometimes we stop seeing a client around that 4-month period where they've finished their vaccine series and they've gotten their rabies vaccination. Whether or not they're going to come back for their spay and neuter, we just can't count on that. So what we would recommend doing is at their last puppy visit, you give them enough single doses of oral prevention to get them to the point of 8 months old. And you can dispense these by predicting how that puppy's going to move through their growth phase. So they may change weight ranges in that, especially if they are in that kind of middle-sized dog. What we've done to make this convenient for you for dispensing it and for the client is we have made a code, and it's called the Healthy Pup Heartworm Prevention Pack, and we have one code for Sentinel and one code for Trifexis. So essentially for this single charge, it's one single line item. There will be an associated inventory window where you can choose the 4 months worth of prevention that you're dispensing. And we kind of averaged out the cost of this. The one for Sentinel is $59. The one for Trifexis is $86 because it's a more expensive product. So how this would look would be, let's use my dog Moose as an example. By the time that he made it to 4 months old, I knew I wanted to do ProHeart for him when he became 8 months old. So I would have been charged by our team for a 4-pack of Sentinel under this new code, and maybe you would have dispensed 2 of the 26 to 50 since he's a growing lab, and then 2 of the 51 to 100 depending on where he's going to be in that cycle. After that, I will get a reminder based on dispensing of those heartworm preventions for the ProHeart to return, and I would return and get on the cycle and system of receiving ProHeart every 6 months. So I'd get the first ProHeart at 8 months old, and then the next ProHeart would line up with his annual, and we would go on from there. Again, no matter the age, we're going to do that witness test that's complementary with the first one, and then it would line up for 6 months later for them to get the next heartworm test. All those codes are in there. All the details are in the SOP. I hope that makes sense to you. If not, ask questions. We're here to help you, and this is new. You are going to see us paring down the product that we carry for oral heartworm because we're expecting you to use ProHeart as your primary prevention. So you'll see us probably carrying less of the packets of those other heartworm preventions, and we'll be counting on you to recommend ProHeart to our clients underneath the guidance of our doctors. So what I would do is just make a point when clients come to refill those to make your ProHeart recommendation at that point, document that so that we can remember to talk to them again about it at the next time that they come for a visit. And again, you've got kind of a map of how to guide them through making that change. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is big, we've been kind of building up to this time. In just 3 days, we have our new veterinarians who are beginning with us, and we are changing the shifts that we work. So not only are we welcoming these new team members, but we've got some additional changes to go along with that. So again, our 2 new doctors, Dr. Gordy Labe and Dr. Ryan Andrews, they both start on Monday the 9th. And here's the key takeaways of things that are going to change as an overview. So we have a lot of doctors on our AVImark schedule, and we have to be pretty strategic on how to view those so that we can schedule accurately and that we can move through serving clients pretty swiftly. So I've asked our customer care team who work the 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. shift to be responsible each of the 7 days a week for changing the sequence which doctors will appear on the schedule. So how this will work is moving from left to right. You would see the 11 p.m. doctor, and then the 8 a.m. doctors, the 3 to 9, the 5 to 11, and it'll kind of cycle back after that point when you go on to the next day. So you would see those doctors displayed in that way. That way, whenever you open AVImark, you're going to have a shift to see who's working instead of who's not working on the particular day of the calendar that you're on. A little bit of a challenge is the sequence changes, and it changes for all the other days to follow in the calendar. So it's a little bit unpredictable at that point, but I think we're better served to work out of a calendar where we can see what's going on in the current moment and let the schedulers who are really good at navigating the schedule and looking for open spaces deal with the other. And I've got some cool features to make doing their job a little bit easier coming soon too. So that's how we're going to handle our schedule. It'll make it really easy for you to open it up again and see which patients you're expecting in the hospital at a certain time if they're all kind of grouped together. We'll also have the over-the-counter column always be the furthest to the right as availability for the day because that's what we're used to now. The next thing that we're changing, again with our doctor's shifts changing, is the biggest driver for change here. We've got those predicted shifts that we kind of reviewed and that the doctors will rotate through. So the other thing that we will change will be our hospitalization charges. Essentially, the hospitalization charges right now are broken into two parts, kind of like an AM and PM, so to speak. It goes from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So now we're just going to divide that into three parts. It'll be 8 to 5, 5 to 11, and 11 to 8 a.m. And instead of having all of our kind of supplemental supportive charges like fluid therapy and inpatient ward care and all those things attached, we've just included conceptually that we know we're doing those things, and it'll all fall under the one charge that's called hospitalization. So essentially there's the two types of hospitalizations, with fluids and without fluids, and now there will be 6 charges related to hospitalization. 3 for fluids, 3 without fluids, and each of those individual within the 3 types, or within the 2 types, will represent a shift. So there will be a hospitalization with fluids for 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., another for 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., and so it goes. You get that. Make sure that we are putting all the notes underneath those areas for the shift, and then make sure that we're anchoring that provider charge to whoever that veterinarian was. That'll be important for the customer care team members who do our transaction journals to note that you'll have to look at all the associated charges that fall within a time frame and make sure that those are associated to the provider who's listed there. And team, know that that's a huge chore for them to do, so be sure that you're doing it right the first time. A lot of that responsibility falls on our treatment room nurses who are readily entering those things. The next thing to be aware of in that light is transferring cases between doctors. Again, we talked about this in short last week, but there's a 3-part kind of funnel system here. There is the 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 or 3 to 9 doctors who will transfer cases that they've taken in to the 5 to 11 doctor, and then the 5 to 11 doctor goes to the 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. doctor. The 8 a.m. doctor goes to any of the 8 to 4s. So it's pretty easy to choose if you're working, let's say, the day hours between 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's pretty easy to choose who to transfer to because there's only one doctor working each the 5 to 11 and 11 to 8. However, when you're coming off of 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. as a treatment room nurse, you have to make the choice of which doctor to choose to transfer to. So here's my suggestion. We have a little guide for you to go through. Critical thinking is necessary here though. So first consider returning them to the original doctor who took the case in. The next consideration to make would be return them to a doctor who's seen the case and is current on the case during that patient's stay. If multiple are available, I would choose who's done it the most recently. These things are important because rapport with a client and consistency to a client to not feel like a number is super important. So we have to be really strategic about that. And then the last thing to consider is choosing a doctor who's going to be available for the coming days if that patient's predicted to stay in the hospital. So you might choose from a doctor who's going to be maybe consistently on the 8 to 4 type of shifts so that the client won't have those changes coming forward. This will be especially something to consider if you're coming off of a weekend. So I've written all that out again so that you can consistently use that as a guide, and we're going to put it on some laminated cards and tape them to the clipboard so that you can always make those considerations. There are many more details that go with transferring, so be sure that you read the text, but that's the overview so that everybody can kind of understand the process and follow that as a guide so that we can support that decision. All right. So the next thing to go over is we have a new process for fungal cultures and we have new mediums. So there's lots of instructions. There's an SOP attached and a video for the nurses attached to review how to do that. And again, if you look in the comments section of that treatment item, there's a step-by-step instruction on how to do that. So that way you don't have to go look for the SOP. You could just double click on that item from the treatment list and you'll quickly get to the instructions on how to use those so that when you're in the moment, you can do that pretty quickly. Another big announcement that we have is our new website launched, and this is really cool. So we reviewed a couple features that were to come, but now that they're live in action, it's actually almost better. So here are the kind of highlights that are not really standard for your average website that I think we're doing a really special thing with. One is our boarding form. That is really, really cool. Clients can go on and they can request a boarding reservation, and it submits it directly to us. And then we can actually approve that reservation, and it drops it right into Atlantis. So this is ideal in a couple of situations. One is obviously the client doing it, and the second is a new team member who is nervous to use Atlantis or doesn't know how to use it well. To make those reservations for a client. So I could imagine maybe being in an exam room and restraining a pet, waiting on the other team members to come in, finding yourself in a conversation where you could do this for a client. You could essentially help them to make their reservation to save them some time, and just let them know that this is pending confirmation, and so there may be some specific changes that we need to discuss with them. So if you put their phone number down, we can call them to confirm that it was made, and then also to add any other details that maybe need to happen there. So that part is really, really easy. And we also have other forms like a new client registration form. This is better than ever. And any of these forms, when they are completed, they actually automatically email to us. So our team who's checking the email 24/7, I mean, they check that email multiple times during an hour, they can quickly see and respond to those things and make it happen. So the new client form, I would encourage new clients who are coming in by phone to do that. They can do it from any mobile device. They can do it obviously from a desktop. So they could even do it while they were in the car on the way if they had a buddy to help them with it. So they can get that done, and they don't have to balance a clipboard in their pet or cause any delays when they get here. The whole point is these things only happen and only are made easy if we recommend them to clients. So you knowing that they're available, your next step is to make those recommendations. The other thing that we have is we have the sedation and anesthesia consent form, which I showed you guys a couple weeks ago. Just make sure that you understand the process to follow. So the client will be prompted by the customer care team to complete those when they're calling to confirm those appointments. The idea behind that is not just for easy access for the client, but also to cut down on the wait time that they have when they come to check their pet in for a procedure. So if the customer care team prompts the client to do it and the client does it, it gets emailed to us. The next step for the customer care team is when they receive it, print it out and match that up with the patient's surgery chart, so that when the client gets here to drop their pet off and admit them for the procedure, the nurse who would normally do the intake can really move pretty quickly through this meeting. Nurses, you have to make sure that you review this sheet even though it's complete, and look for any areas where a client declined something that you would have recommended. What stands out to me is with dentistry, that we want to recommend dental x-rays every time. Well, if the client already declined that, I would revisit that situation one more time and just kind of present it as, are you sure? And give them your experience with all the right reasons to do those. That way you make sure that they have made an informed decision in declining those things. You definitely don't have to harp on them, but it's a good way to make sure that we kind of dot all the I's and cross all the T's on that. And make sure that they understand what they've asked for and you've confirmed the procedure. So after all that's done, you'll see the check-in questions are answered there. You can move on to admitting the pet. So I love that form. All of our online appointment booking forms kind of work the same way. The client goes in, they request an appointment for any hospital service, for grooming, for boarding, for doggy daycare, all the things that we kind of make appointments and reservations for. They come to us by email, and then we respond to the client to confirm the appointment. That's key, team. You actually have to confirm the appointment, and that's confirming that you've put it on the appropriate schedule and you made sure that the client knows when to arrive, and you clear up any other things that they may need. Still go through the process with Ally DVM. Make sure that they are current on all their other needs and that you have confirmed exactly what they're coming in for. Give them a quote on services if they need it. kind of go through any other details. Maybe they've requested one time and you got something close to it, so you need to line that up. So you actually do have to give them a phone call to confirm that. Other cool things that we have online, we have a lot of service pages, we've got videos, we've got pictures. So I want you to make sure that you go and you check all those things out. Some other advanced training will come. Right now we're concentrating on training with the customer care team for the last and the biggest feature, which is live chat. You'll see this available. Don't drive them crazy by testing it, because they are actually actively already serving clients through live chat. So I know it's tempting, but don't chat with them because they're really busy. So make sure that you understand live chat will feature, we'll have a featured training for it on how to use it. Customer care team, you have to connect with this. There's a dashboard on how you manage these things, and we're doing some kind of triage training with them through the weekend to make sure that they're able to attend this. But other team, don't harass them through live chat. The next thing that I want to go through to make sure everybody's aware of is barking dogs. I sound like Dr. Andy, he always says that. With coughing dogs, we are actively seeing cases of kennel cough from all kinds of community areas, and we have to know that we are vulnerable as a practice for this. So I wanted to make the recommendation for you to start connecting with clients about coughing dogs. So I want our customer care team to start asking clients by phone about coughing dogs when we're confirming. But really, you can quickly put somebody on the defensive for that. So I have a couple talking points and almost like a script that's in the training section in text on how to eloquently do that. I want everybody to know that we definitely don't want to bring coughing dogs into our practice. So some things that we've seen done really well recently are we have been doing exams on coughing dogs in the parking lot from the convenience and the air conditioning of a client's car. And we've also tried to comfortably seclude coughing dogs who are here with us boarding in the house. And it's quite comfortable for them. They've got definitely a nice cool window unit AC. They've got a nice bright space, and our resort team's still going over to leash walk them, to do play times with them, to let them out and to roam around. So it's a pretty cool deal that they have, and they're safely secluded and isolated from other dogs. So we've kind of got the little ICU ward over there going for them. So there are options for coughing dogs. We just have to make sure that we get ahead of it. So be sure that you read the text and make yourself comfortable with having that kind of conversation. And then I'm also going to attach a YouTube video so everybody knows what we're saying to clients who call and what we're sending them as far as their confirmation. So that's something that Dr. Patrick did really well. All right, going forward into some upcoming things that we have, I'm really excited for the resort team to have a new skill to master. So Drew is going to be administering some training coming up for all of the resort team, and it's a 2-part training. It's pretty behavioral body language type based, but it's an applicable skill for everybody. So once we do this for the resort team, we can actually start to share this kind of information through other teams and make it an available skill, or a CE. And that program is called Knowing Dogs. Again, it's a part 1, part 2 kind of deal. And it's really fresh information, a fresh take and presentation on it. So I'm excited to see that come together. And resort team will get you the details on when that's going to start, but it's going to be really soon. Also, you may notice some new positions that we've added and we've assigned you to in Humanity. Don't worry about this. We're just specifying our positions. It's kind of like a little housekeeping effort in Humanity, and it's definitely in line with us making our shift choices. So as I mentioned before, we're going to start linking pay to specific shifts and specific times of day. So we've started putting those positions into Humanity. So if anything looks different for you, if you find yourself not able to do a different feature that you're used to, just message me through Humanity and let me know. I'll fix it for you. Nothing should get in the way, but you may be getting notifications that you've been assigned to new positions. So just be aware of that. Nothing big there, but something that someone did bring up. Also, mark your calendars. Next Thursday, that's July 12th, we're going to have our CE, and it's going to be available at 12 p.m. and at 5 p.m. We're actually doing some euthanasia service training. So when I say service training, I don't want you to immediately think this is a step-by-step guide on how to euthanize a pet. That's not something that we have to train on, but something that we do have to train on are kind of like some grief counseling type situations that we find in, some ways that we as team members can guard our hearts, and also a way that we can just give the absolute best service and best comforting to a client at this really intimate and sensitive moment. So we plan to come together at this meeting to talk about how we can come together as a team to just absolutely be the best, kind of share some pro tips that you may not have ever been exposed to or ever thought of. So we're going to do this meeting again July 12th, that's next Thursday. 2 sessions, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. and then 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. This is a CE. It's not a mandatory thing, but I do really encourage you to come. We're going to try and put some block offs so that we can get the most team available to attend those. You will clock out. You should bring your own lunch if you want to use that as your lunch time. And again, you will earn a skill and a badge for being there. Earning those skills is something that's really important, that looks really great for you, and it enables you to be a really multifunctional, cross-trained team member. So make sure that you try and attend that. It's going to be a great meeting led by Dr. Kristen Plauché. The next thing that I wanted to share, the last thing I wanted to share, is we're going to be making some changes to our cat room. And in addition to what I shared earlier this week about moving our shed, we're trying to amend some of our spaces to get us ready to really work comfortably with an increased load of doctors, keep up with our growth, and also be really prepared for our construction, which is going to start in the upcoming weeks. So with this change to the cat room, we want to be able to utilize the cat room for some overflow for over-the-counter appointments, or when we see patients for Dr. Strickland, because with LVS closing, he'll be coming here to LVCC to see some of our patients again. So we're going to reconfigure that room slightly to make it a little bit more client friendly, but still keep it very cat friendly and cat oriented. We're going to add a table and a workstation in there, just again to make it a really smooth thing. Frost the glass, probably add a shade. So you'll notice those changes, and we'll be working with the resort team to make sure that we can minimize the impact that this has on their routine and the ability for the cats to play. So all those things will be coming up pretty soon within the next week or two that we're doing that. All right, guys, long update today, but a lot of really important things. Please read all the text. I can't stress that enough. There are so many more details and so many things that we're going to have to hold you accountable for doing and really hit the ground running with all of this on Monday. So see us with questions. I hope you have a great weekend and great job again this week. Take care.